What's up, girls? I just read George Orwell's essay, Politics in the English Language. I read it online on his website, theorwellfoundation.com. They have all of his essays in like non-novelistic writing on there for free. Great resource, check it out. I plugged all of my recent reading into ChatGPT and asked it for sort of gaps, and told it, my goals and intentions, and it told me to read some more essays on English or literary theory by famous writers, or important writers, and to read more poetry. So I started off with this essay, Politics in the English Language. Orwell is basically making the point, and I believe this was written in the 1940s, that the English language has been degraded over time, degraded by bad use, unclear thought, and this is a result of various different reasons. Number one is people trying to sound smart, but becoming less clear in the process, basically. So instead of saying, or let's say people are objectively, in the zeitgeist, it has become apparent that canonically, someone would say something like that rather than a lot of people are talking about, which is, it's way less clear. It's intended to make the writer sound smarter, and it just kind of becomes less precise in what they're trying to say. And actually, if you strip all of that away and you say a lot of people are talking about, then you can kind of, it kind of keys you into how to actually make that sentence even more specific. You could, specify which people are talking about what and why a lot more quickly without as much abstraction. And Orwell kind of makes a point to say, it's a similar thing that Cormac McCarthy talks about, actually, that the mind is older than language and thus thinks in images first. And so clear writing is often, pulled from some observation of the physical world and then uses words to describe what's happening. But he writes that in abstract thought, kind of like ephemeral ideas, people tend to come up with words first and kind of circle the idea, and that's very unclear and imprecise, and people don't really end up saying what they would like to say. He pulls some quotes from articles on psychology or articles written by professors that are basically horrible writing. It's pretty funny. He's kind of grilling these guys, certain professors or whatever, and they're just basically using these very long clauses and a lot of negatives. He uses an example later on to make fun of them, the not ungreen dog chases the not unblack cat through the not ungreen field, or something like that, which really that sentence says absolutely nothing, because everything within it contradicts itself. And even though those colors, green and black and white or whatever, are said, because they're not they're being contradictory, and none of those colors are actually in the image that's trying to be depicted. So he says the political implications of this are huge, basically, and the reason is I actually thought this was very current in terms of this essay and what's going on today. Is he talks about no one really knows what fascism is. It's just kind of used as a term for badness. It's not united by certain traits or qualities that a broad consensus of people agree on. That was actually something that's confused me for a really long period of time. There's this guy on YouTube, Ryan Chapman, I believe that's his name, who does a lot of political videos, and he tries to define fascism in a 30-minute video, which should it take 30 minutes to define what one word is, or one ideology? I don't know. But even positive political terms like democracy is kind of the same way. It's kind of hard to define what a democracy is. For example, I took an ancient Greek history course at one point, and my the teacher was saying, like, you know, in ancient Athens, this was the truest form of democracy, because when, you know, ironically they had slaves, right? But at least for the people who were represented, they all actually voted wherever they convened, and every decision that they landed on would, you know, cause the people who were voting to take action or not take action. I think he was giving the example of the Persian War or the Peloponnesian War, can't remember, but he was basically saying, like, each person in that assembly, in that auditorium, voting whether or not to go to war would then actually go to war or not. And so, anyway, I'm getting kind of sidetracked, but basically Orwell talks about, like, if you can't define what fascism is, you can't really oppose it ever. You really need to have, like, firm definitions and clear, precise definitions of things in order to decide whether they're morally good or not, in order to combat them, or even in the positive. You know, you have to, like, know exactly what a democracy is and have a broad consensus of what that is to, you know, try to create a democracy. The issue politically, he says, is politics are kind of often this large web of lies, and, you know, it reminds me of a trend in, like, a lot of the most corrupt countries in the world like to put democratic or republic in their title as an appeal to appear more free, even though they tend to have, like, high levels of corruption. The Democratic Republic of the Congo is an example of that. And he also talks about the feedback loops that good or bad language causes. You know, if you are able to think clearly, you're able to write well, to use language well, and that will help you then think more clearly, help you write with even more precision. But the inverse is true as well. So, like, you know, if you're not able to express yourself well, you say imprecise things, then you're not able to think well about what you've said, and then your thinking becomes even more muddled. Ironically, of course, I feel like I'm not speaking very well on this myself in real time, but yes, this essay is amazing. Highly recommend reading it. He ends it with 6 rules that I'll read to you really quickly. 1, never use a metaphor, simile, or other figure of speech which you are used to seeing in print. 2, never use a long word where a short one will do. 3, if it is possible to cut a word out, always cut it out. 4, never use the passive where you can use the active. 5, never use a foreign phrase, a scientific word, or a jargon word if you can think of it, an everyday English equivalent. And 6, break any of these rules sooner than saying anything outright barbarous. I forgot to mention this, but he talks a lot about, like, how English speakers have started using Greek or Latin root words because they sound more scientific rather than using Saxon words. So, but yeah, this is Orwell's essay, Politics in the English Language. Very cool, definitely worth a read. It's probably a 25 or 30 minute read. Check it out. Thanks for watching.